So this one is from Young Yeah. This is called "Game Companies Are Quitting Making Live Service Games After Recent Mega Flops." We all know this has been a while. This day has been coming for quite some time. So if you guys do like the video, make sure to drop a like, make sure to comment down below, and also make sure to subscribe as well. And if you guys want to tune into the live streams at 1 a.m. I'm sorry, Tuesday through Sunday. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get it. Let's see what's going on here.
On time, every company under the sun would be pursuing live services like it was the next gold rush. But more and more, as live services continue to fail, with only a few really
I just realized he's not wearing a headset and the microphone. He's actually has a microphone. Interesting.
Standing out from the pack, only a few really kind of coming out on top. Many companies are starting to realize actually what a huge risk it is to pursue a live service. And unless you're absolutely sure in your vision and what new elements your live service can provide, it's just too saturated of a market to make the risk worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so some companies are actually starting to pull away from live services and no longer seeing it as a gold mine, but rather as a massive gamble where, if it pays off, sure, you stand to make billions, but if it doesn't, you stand to sink in the hundreds of millions. And among those companies recently has been Sega. You may recall that once upon a time, they were all in on this idea called a super game. They were all into like NFTs and stuff with the super game concept being described here. But this is the way Sega back then defined the super game concept. Quote, "We have defined super game as the development of AAA titles that cross over Sega's comprehensive range of technologies and will aim to achieve this in our 5-year plan. Several titles are being developed within the framework of super game, and while each title will vary, there's no doubt that there will be interactive titles that go beyond the traditional framework of games. A super game title has to meet 4 main criteria. It has to be multi-platform, global multi-language development, it has to release simultaneously worldwide, and it has to be AAA. In other words, you can imagine that the scale of game development will be that of a global blockbuster. And Super Game was also meant to incorporate cloud technology and NFTs. It was something that reminded me a lot of Ubisoft promoting this idea of a quadruple A game and also trying to, make NFTs a thing. And then NFTs died off. That was a trend that never caught on.
Yeah, and then it was supposed to be like, well, not from Ubisoft, but it's supposed to be like a Web3, like Web3 type of games and stuff like that as well. I remember people talking about this for a while because it was like with the NFT, like it was when the NFT boom was happening, and it was like, all right, let's do Web3 booms, Web3 games and things like that. And I was like, all right, I don't know, that one didn't work out too well, did it?
It was universally hated, and with the whole super game idea, it just felt like overinflated budgets for trend pursuits like live services. It felt like that's where they were going. We weren't exactly sure what this was all about. But fast forward to May of 2026, and Sega is deciding to scrap those specific plans, as highlighted right here by Video Games Chronicle in the following article titled, "Sega has canceled development of its super game as it pivots away from live service games." Though that's music to my ears. Don't get me wrong. Look, I'm not saying live services don't have a place in the industry, but the pursuit of it has been just such a rush, and it has been so much trend chasing, and it's felt so like uninspired and more about the potential money that can bring rather than what that specific genre and medium allows in terms of brand new experiences. I always view live service pursuits in a very cynical way because it feels like a cynical pursuit for the most part until something really inspired truly comes along. And with Sega in particular, they're not the biggest game company in the world. They're not at the level of Microsoft and Sony and whatnot, where they can afford to take these kinds of risks that could sink them in the tens to hundreds of millions. And so I think Sega, seeing the landscape of live services right now with how many massive flops we have seen, whether it's High Guard, whether it's currently like Bungie's own Marathon, which has not been doing particularly well among many others over the last few years, I think it is smart for Sega to be like, why don't we just do what we're best at doing instead of trying to pivot into something that is incredibly risky.
Which is true. Why, like games, I want to say games need to, like game companies need to stop chasing a trend. I would say more like chase a trend with a new IP. Don't do it with existing IPs and stuff like that, because then that's how you're just going to ruin the franchise of those said games. We saw with Assassin's Creed, I'm sorry, they're trying to chase the trend of like, the whole DEI thing, and that didn't work out well. Look at Shadows. And then you have like a few other games, apparently supermassive games with Directive 80 was it 80/20 that came out like I think yesterday or the day before. People aren't happy about that game. They're saying like it's too, like the characters, the voice acting and everything, and the characters for it, they just seem so robotic compared to like the actual Dark Pictures anthology games where it had more, it felt more human like, more it flowed, let me put it that way, I guess, if that's a way to put it. But yeah, it felt like it was more like free flowing, like you could sense some emotion and stuff in there, compared to Directive 80/20 where it was just like everything felt like robotic and stuff. And it was like, you know, if there was like a chase scene or something like that, it was like run, and you're like, what the heck? Like put a little oomph in it, have some fear, you know, things like that. So it's crazy.
And that, you know, ultimately does not serve what Sega is best known for, which are those like really out there, high quality, single player campaign driven experiences that are like unique to Sega. Now, speaking of high quality for gaming and content creation, and in my case for voiceover, a high quality microphone that is also flexible is vital. And that's where mono comes in. What I've got right here is the Mono PD100 wireless dynamic microphone. And as you can see right here, it is in fact fully wireless. Beyond your typical wired connection capabilities, this microphone also comes with this receiver that you can plug on any device you want to record audio on for low latency wireless audio recording. So I can plug the receiver to my phone, for example,
that's pretty
and
cool,
wirelessly record high quality audio that way. I can plug it into my PC and have a high quality wireless mic setup for gaming and content creation. And we're talking about 82 dB SNR broadcast level audio that eliminates static and background noise for clear, professional sounding audio, which is great for gaming, streaming, making videos like how I'm doing right now. Beyond the fact that it being wireless makes it super easy to plug and play and kind of...
The only downside I can hear from his voice when he's talking, it kind of sounds like you're talking like this. Like it's just how the microphone sounds. How you doing, Dan? Doing good. We just started. We're just reacting to what the game companies and stuff are doing, and then after that, we're going to be hopping into some Battlefield to level up the new sniper rifle. But hopefully you're doing well.
Take high quality audio on the go. What makes it even more possible is the 7-layer noise reduction and AI noise cancellation feature in particular that cool. I think is pretty impressive. So here's what it sounds like without the noise cancellation turned on. You can see, you can hear the clacking of this keyboard while I'm talking, but when the feature is turned on, you can see that I am clacking on the keyboard, but the only thing that really stands out is my voice, and the keyboard clacking, the background noise is completely drowned out. So you can get pretty good sounding audio even in noisy or untreated rooms. And with features like the dual mode output, which allows you to output to both wired connection and wireless connection simultaneously, you know, as well as the ability to use the Mono desktop app to customize things like EQ and its RGB lighting, you've got a microphone that also just offers a lot of flexibility. So if you're looking for a new microphone that will serve multiple needs with the convenience of plug and play simplicity with an affordable price point, the Mono PD100W is a fantastic choice, I think. And you can use my link in the description and comment section below to get yours today. Anyway, back to the new
question. Okay, now we gotta look it up. Now we gotta look it up. Was it Mono? I think I saw that at TwitchCon before. Let me see here. Let's look at it. Let's look at them. Okay, so there's this one right here. Not bad. It's a dynamic microphone, $70. Not bad. They have a good amount of stuff. Okay. I've noticed a lot of people are going around this route with the microphones. Like I've seen Rode with it. The people that had it first, from what I'm guessing, it was Audio Technica. That's what I'm using. I'm using the BP40. I've always wanted this microphone. This is a dynamic microphone. I love this. The microphone I used to use is the Blue Blackout Spark, which I still have in the box. That's a condenser microphone, but it got a little rough talking on that one. So, okay, that's cool. All right.
News at hand, Sega, and them pulling out of live services. So it reads right here that Sega has quietly confirmed the cancellation of this super game concept in a slide detailing a review of its live service efforts, which highlights that super game on some level, as it was being conceptualized, was meant to imbue a lot of live service elements in these like big, massive AAA games that are supposed to be at a blockbuster level of investment. A big part of why Sega's backpedaled away from live service endeavors is because their live service releases have not gone down well, with the weak performance of titles like Sonic Rumble Party, as well as their acquisition of Angry Birds creator Rovio back in 2023 not having gone down well. Once upon a time, Angry Birds was the big shit, but its sales have declined significantly recently. Sega said it is lowering the priority of free-to-play games in the immediate future. Once again, music to my ears. The thing about free-to-play games is it often comes with so many compromises and sacrifices. Because you have to make it free, you have to implement the monetization systems within the game design itself, which in turn compromises the game design, because it's not about making the most fun game, it's about making a game that engages players enough, but ultimately like strong arms them into spending money in order to justify the fact that the game is free and has recurrent costs associated with it being a live service. But with the recent failures surrounding some of Sega's recent acquisitions, as well as free-to-play releases, they're saying, let's not do that, because what's worked for them are those premium price games that are just games in their own right with no monetization or, nothing at the level of what we see in, like pure live services. They do add some microtransactions in some of their single-player releases, and, some of that stuff I'm not a big fan of. But generally, they've been best known for those, like, iconic IPs that they have held true to. And when they do that, that's when I think Sega does best.
Yeah, I think overall when it comes to I think what is best for games is if they went back to how was like with Call of Duty Black Ops 1, Battlefield 3, things like that, where you obviously buy the base game and everything, but then like, DLC content, have the option of if you want to download it, things like that. What up, Sinful? What up, man? But yeah, have like DLC content and things like that. Just have it to where if you want to buy, you can buy it. That was always something that I liked with the content of those games, because like you can still play it if you want to, right? But you can still play like the base game of how you want to and everything like that. But then like if you want to play like the DLC, like DLC maps, use some of the DLC guns and stuff, you totally can. That always worked out well for the games, and they still made a good amount of money. But then obviously greed came in and people were like, oh, let's do more microtransactions, let's introduce battle passes and things like that, which was terrible. It's a terrible thing. How's the L115 grind going? I didn't play earlier today. I was going to, and then I took a nap. But we're at level 12, so we're gonna be on. The goal is to try to get to 20 tonight. So yeah, let's see. Or hear me out. Gaming companies make the video game actually fun, where players return and actually want to play. Yeah, but that's the hard part because of how everything is right now. Obviously, like short form content and everything, and TikTok shorts, reels, all that, really shortened up people's attention span. So it's like, how are you supposed to? Now, let me back up. Don't get me wrong. Player retention for video games has always been a struggle. That has always been an uphill battle. Always has, no matter what. But now, because of all this new technology that's happening, short form content, things like that, for me, it has gone to the point where these companies are like trying to get something that hits off very well from the very beginning and everybody likes it. They didn't think of like the big picture. They didn't think of like the end game for it, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the games have you seen that are coming out, they have high numbers on like high numbers, high viewerships, high player counts, and then around 6 months it starts going down. Lately it's actually been going down even sooner, which is even worse. Just saying, attention span, people barely have those anymore. Exactly. And people and that's the thing. That's why it's like with From Software, why people like From Software games, because even though it's just the base game, the regular base game, there's still more content in there. Like that's why they implemented the new game plus, the new game plus. It's like new game plus. If you play the game over and over and over, that campaign over and over and over again, there's always something new, which I think is awesome. That's why, among other things, I've set my own rules when I buy a video game. Yeah, like for me, it's like if it's a game I know I'm going to want to play, I will get it straight from the get-go. Only reason why I got Battlefield 6 is because I worked on it for a while. I QA tested and I was like, I actually like this. But then again, the stuff that has happened afterwards, it's like, do what the heck, type of thing. Also, I watched a video where someone purchased a Steam controller just to drop it so he can hear the William scream. That is crazy. Yeah, I heard about those the the Steam controllers already selling out. Like they sold out in 15 minutes of the release, but then also because of scalpers and stuff. But apparently they're restocking. That's from what I've heard. I heard they're restocking it, so that's good. Let's get back to it. I'm sorry. I'm rambled on way too much.
So it reads right here that over 100 developers who are working on free-to-play titles have already been transferred to full game development teams. That's what they need to focus on, those quote-unquote full games, focusing on mainstay IPs, according to the company. Again, music to my ears, and I think a very positive pivot. Planned revivals include, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, and Streets of Rage. All those remain in production. And there's actually a slide from Sega's presentation that highlights some of their marquee upcoming releases, and all this stuff I think is gold. I mean, Stranger Than Heaven looks freaking sick. We recently learned it's actually like a Yakuza prequel and the origin story of the Tojo.
I will say that one, Stranger Than Heaven, I think that is going to be a fun game to play. I want to look at a few live streams first before I purchase it, but it looks pretty cool. Crazy Taxi, we all know Crazy Taxi. I think people are just going to buy that off of nostalgia. Same thing with Golden Axe, Jet Set Radio, Streets of Rage. Mainly Streets of Rage is going to be cool because it's a beat 'em up game, and we all remember side-scrolling beat 'em ups. Unless they're going to go towards the modern route, maybe have it 3D, because remember, it is a side-scroller 2D type of game, beat 'em up game. So who knows? And the Alien Isolation, it all depends.
Clan Persona 4 Revival. I think that's a phenomenal game that I think a lot of people are looking forward to being modernized. Total War Warhammer 40K. Warhammer 40K is more popular than ever. Tons of people have been requesting a Total War game in this particular setting. We're finally getting that.
I remember that
new
one.
Virtual Fighter game could be really sick. And I mean, these are all beloved IPs whose revivals are being celebrated. This is the right direction. Forget about all this super game bullshit and all the NFT bullshit. Focus on the core thing that made you who you are, right?
Yes.
And so the fact that once upon a time they were talking,
Ubisoft can take a page out of Sega's book right now. Bring back Splinter Cell, bring back Ghost Recon, give us the tactical military shooters, give us those games back. It'd be good. It'll be good.
Talking about a super game and how that involves the concept of a game that stands head and shoulders above normal games. Again, very much the same talk you hear for quadruple A games. The fact that we're pivoting away from that, and the fact that they're recognizing the volatile market that is games as a service titles, with recent flops like Highguard highlighting that no matter how much attention you get, it doesn't guarantee that people will stay. There are already so many live services out there with how saturated the market is.
Call of Duty kind of proved this point too, because it's like you have Call of Duty next, you invite all these content creators out to play the game. Obviously they get their recordings, the viewership comes in and stuff, and people are like ooh and ah about it. But then in the end, it just doesn't, it doesn't pan out well. A lot of people many people don't buy the game. And especially with Modern Warfare 4 coming out, nobody's actually actually wanting to buy the game. Well, I want to say nobody's wanting to buy the game. Not many people are gonna purchase the game like if it was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 or something like that, comparing those numbers, just because the way how Call of Duty has been in the past. So
is that people can only pick one or two that they really stick with and spend a lot of time and money on, and pulling people away from the de facto live services now is incredibly difficult. The recognition of all of that is, I think, something that Sega was smart in doing, and something that I think a lot more companies should be taking very seriously. I mean, Amazon recently, one of the biggest conglomerates in the world, they have failed in their live service endeavors. And this article right here highlights all of the recent shutdowns of live services, with MMO projects like New World having come to an end. Amazon also announced the closure of platformer King of Meat and sold MOBA March of Giants to Ubisoft, so on and so forth. So even major companies with the ability to throw money at game development projects are having trouble shipping a successful live service. Sony itself, once upon a time, had the plan to ship 12 live services within the span of 3 or 4 years, and that's been truncated significantly, especially with flops like Highguard, as well as Concord. We've got
what it is also because of if you think about it, a lot of the microtransactions, these companies, or these suits in these companies, they want to have a ton of microtransactions, people to buy bundles and things like that. Well, here's the thing. The economy change, people losing jobs, the job market being pretty rough. Because here's the thing, it's you play the game and you just don't have the money for it, obviously, because of your job. Or you have the money from the job, but you just don't have time to play the game. It's just one of those things. because you're obviously, you know, using that money elsewhere for like basic household needs, things like that. Because nobody's wanting to purchase these bundles and things like that and these microtransactions. Yeah, a lot of these studios are going under. Again, they are freaking getting destroyed by their own greed, I guess you would say. It is what it is. It is what it is.
List highlighting what Sony live service projects have been canceled, what are still in progress, and what have been released. And you can see the sheer amount of live services that Sony ultimately had to cancel and shut down, realizing that it was just not a viable thing to ship that many live services within such a short time frame. Because again, not only is the market so oversaturated, but all of these titles would like cannibalize each other coming from the same publisher. It was always like a dumb idea, and I can't believe it took them as long as they did to realize that. There's still some games that are in the works. Marathon is out now. Bungie's still working on the live service component of it. You've got Fair Games, which I'll be honest with you, I have very little faith that it will succeed. You've got Horizon Hunter's Gathering. You know, could be cool, could be fun, but I certainly don't think it has the potential to become like the next Fortnite or the next Apex Legends and, you know, stand among those giants. And, you know, when you've got game development studios like Bungie, who are essentially like the originators of the current live service framework through Destiny, struggling to ship a successful live service. Look at Marathon here. Like there's no question that.
You know how many games were released on Steam each week? Hundreds. I believe thousands. And because there's like a lot of there's some games that like come up that people discover, like, you know, Moist Critical, Penguin Zero, I guess you say. And then like Queso, they would play, and then, like, those would get attention. Asmongold would play some of the games, and they would get some attention of it as well. But yeah, under that, there's, I want to say, thousands of games that are just like, they get released. Like right now, as we speak, there's a game being released. There's a few games being released and stuff like that too. So
Marathon, as of right now, is a flop.
Oh, also the other thing is, when it comes to these games, and like why indie games are doing so well is because it's just like somebody just thought of, what if I made a game about, like, it's basically, a lot of people made games based off of curiosity. I saw a game, it was called Open Water. This was on Twitter. It's a game called Open Water, and literally it's people that, if you have a phobia of like the ocean, I forgot what the actual name of it, the name of the phobia is, of water, the fear of like open water. You stay on a little boat and you're like trying to, like, I think the goal is to find land, almost like Raft. But thing is, you cannot fall in the water. If you fall in the water, you die or something like that by like some sort of monster or like big old fish or something. I can't remember, but it is insane. It is crazy. So more quantity rather than quality. I'd rather have quality games than quantity. That's just me personally. If a game takes like 6 years to develop, but they have the transparency of like, hey, this is what's going on with the game, yada yada yada, then I'd be like, okay, that's fine. But if they're like, if this game took 6 years to make and there's like nothing, we didn't hear anything about it, we just heard, hey, there's this game that's going to be coming out, it's in development, and then that's it, I'd be a little concerned. Yeah, more quality, of course. Yes, of course.
Like, we have seen the budget figures of like over $250 million. Marathon at most might have sold like 2.2 million units. When you actually do the calculations, the revenue come nowhere close to matching that over $250 million budget. That only gets bigger with time, because Marathon is a live service where, you know, you have to recurrently spend money to continue development on this game. Like, there's no way Marathon is deemed a successful product within Sony and PlayStation. And I'll remind you that things were bad enough with Bungie's performance and Marathon's performance that Sony recently recorded a $766 million impairment loss against Bungie for the 2025 financial year. Impairment loss has less to do with like money that was directly spent, but more to do with the loss of valuation of an asset like Bungie, which Sony bought for $3.6 billion. And it turns out Bungie is not worth anywhere near that much with the current performance of games like Destiny 2 and Marathon, both of which are dying off.
They did Destiny 2 so dirty. They could have finished it where they could have ended it with Final Shape, where you end the Dark and Light saga. You could just end it there, and then you could have went to Destiny 3 with, if they wanted to do if they were to do Edge of Fate and Renegades and stuff like that, if they put that into Destiny 3, it would make total sense, because it's like, okay, brand new game, okay, we're in a different saga, okay, cool. if people want to go back to the Dark Light saga, they play Destiny 1, play Destiny 2, right? But then playing in this new saga, you'd play Destiny 3 and carry on so on and so forth. But they didn't do that. They're like, oh, let's just add it to Destiny 2, and anything that we have for the final shape, how we had it like pretty much a proper send off and everything, because like Commander Zavala, the voice actor Lance Reddick, rest in peace, he passed away, and the way how they did it and everything, it flowed pretty well. It was a good send off and everything, but they just came back like, no, we can get a little more money out of people. Let's go ahead and let's do Edge of Fate, and let's go do Renegades. Renegades did pretty well, but it still didn't sustain enough people. So that's the thing.
In terms of player base and the amount of money being spent on it and the revenue that they're making. So it's that thing of like, when even experts of live services are having trouble releasing new live services and having them be successful, can a company like Sega, that isn't necessarily known for live services, pivot in that direction and make that a successful endeavor, unless they have some...
All right, where I was going with that is basically AAA companies need to stop chasing the trend for everything, and they just need to go back to what they were doing, what made them what they were.
Really inspired ideas for that genre. I don't think that would have ever panned out. I think Sega sticking to their core strengths is the way to go. Not to say they aren't allowed to experiment with live services, but pursuing it as this, like putting a bunch of eggs in this basket and riding everything on this endeavor success, that I think is a recipe for like self-destruction. And Sega's pivot away from that, I think, was the smart move to make. And seeing that more and more companies are getting more hesitant about live service pursuits, and seeing that so many live services are failing to really stand out and succeed at the level that that these companies want them to me, that's an encouraging sign, because that means that we'll see live services kind of slow down a bit, and it's less of like this gold rush and more of like a harder and much more like nuanced consideration of, what kinds of live services are worth making. And hopefully this means that in the future of live service landscape, we'll focus more on quality over quantity, because right now it feels like this race towards quantity. Again, it feels very much like people are just gambling with this endeavor, but that gamble is becoming less and less in the favor of companies who pursue this genre, because the saturation of the market makes it less and less likely that your live service will stand out. You've got to have something truly special and truly unique, but a lot of live services, it feels like they're just kind of chasing what's already popular rather than establishing new popular things. I think another company that's been crushing it, that's been just doing what they do best instead of trying to chase these, potential heavily monetizable trends, is Capcom, who have been seeing a great year. And they too are, not necessarily the biggest company in the world, but I feel like it's a company that understands it doesn't need to be the biggest company in the world. It just needs to do what it does well. They just have to continue doing what they...
I remember it like it was yesterday. My first Sega console, the 8-bit Master System, then the Mega Drive, and the others I had. For me, the Dreamcast was the coolest controller with the mini console was something special. Oh yes, I miss it too.
They do best, and in the long term, they will see, I think, just steady growth as their IPs gain more just general popularity, as people expect consistent quality with the franchises that Capcom is helming. And thankfully, Capcom recently talked about some of the franchises that they want to grow, and the fact that they're listing some of these beloved ones and putting a focus on them, and not doing bullshit live services and not making that the focus, at least, and thinking about growing IPs like Mega Man and Devil May Cry and Onimusha and Dead Rising, Ace Attorney, Dragon's Dogma, Okami, all beloved IPs that you wouldn't necessarily associate with live services. That pursuit is kind of more of what I want to see from game companies who have a history of what people really love about what those companies do. So I feel like Sega has gotten the right idea by backing away from the super game concept and from live services. I feel like Capcom has been on that trajectory, and Resident Evil 9's launch has proven to be incredibly successful for Capcom. Is it making them live service, Fortnite level money? No. But I think it's a company that's we don't necessarily need to be that. We can just be Capcom. We can make enough.
And the thing is, it keeps you're not making a lot of money, but you are keeping a good player base, and also your core audience too. So there's that.
Enough money that we can keep the lights on, that we can see some kind of steady growth and pay our employees and continue making these amazing games.
Yeah, not lay off
just
people.
Have a healthy environment. over this like Russian pursuit for the next gold rush and the next big money maker. Let this be the path that the games industry kind of takes moving forward, and let quality be the focus and not the quantity. Because the amount of live services that were being developed and are still being developed, I think it's just not sustainable. So it's time to pull it back, and Sega pulling it back, I think, is a great indicator of hopefully where the industry is headed, as they realize that they can't just ship dozens of live services every year and expect that, those will be sustainable or successful. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is one man's take. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on Sega kind of pulling back on live services and the general landscape of live services, and the more kind of hesitant outlook surrounding that landscape from a lot of game companies as they see failure after failure, in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young Yeah.
All right. So yeah, let me go ahead and link this to you guys. Make sure to go drop a follow, give him a like, everything like that of that number of that nature. Okay. Let's see. I just want to see like what some people were talking about with this. They said that, some people are like, we try to warn them, only a decade behind the market. Well done, game industry. I think what it is that if they wanted to still do the live service, let me think about that. Yeah, if they were to do the live service games, of like for Sega, there's one game in particular, and I swear if they ever bring this game back, I swear, if Sega is to ever bring this game back, I will be gone. You guys will never hear from me. You guys will never see me again. It's this game. It's called Phantasy Star Universe. This was like the console's version of World of Warcraft. You pay $10 for the online subscription to play. You were able to, talk with friends and stuff. You would be able to go in and like level up weapons, your character, things like that. This was a very, very, very fun game to play. I remember playing with so many friends. Let me see here. People like talking and stuff like that is crazy. But it was a very fun, time. Also the music was great. I know that game but never played. Oh, it's so good. It was so good. I remember people could have made, I want to say it's before its time, and I was gonna say it was before YouTube's time, but no, YouTube was out. But if you were to be a content creator, a YouTuber for this game, like, hey, what we're doing is we're gonna go from level 1 to level 100. Actually, you go higher than level 100, to be honest. Man, it was crazy. This was the 10 minutes. So they had like even announcements saying like, hey, we're shutting down, things like that. Everybody's gathered together in the last area. Yeah, September 12th. September 7th, 2012 is when it ended, when they shut the servers down, which is insane. It was a really cool time, and then after that, it all just went away. And this was on the 360. This was on the Xbox 360 alone. It was cool. It was a cool time. It was fun. But yeah, it sucks. All I can say is I hope if Sega were to go back and were to do a live service, hopefully it would be Phantasy Star Universe. I know we have Phantasy Star Online too, but still, type of thing. Yeah, Phantasy Star and Phantasy Star Home was a good time. It was so great. I remember coming home from school and like on a Friday and just booting that up and playing hours on end, order some pizza and just stayed up until the wee hours of the morning of Saturday, just playing, grinding and stuff like that. It was so fun. It was so good. But yeah, so let me know in the comments what you guys think about Sega and overall in the game industry. Like, do you guys think that they should just get away from live service games and go back to the way how it is, have full on polished games? Or do you think they should just continue with live service games? Or should they go back in the early stages of live service games of like how they did with Call of Duty Black Ops 1, where they had like, the DLC packs, Ascension, things like that? Or how they did with, what was it? Halo with their map packs and things like that. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Stop Chino. Later. Peace.